Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. First we're going to start with Kyiv because we got one of the most important updates from Ukraine, from the parliament of Ukraine. To be more precise, the Ukrainians are planning to adopt a very important law that allows the Ukrainians to use commercial recruiting organizations for recruitment and mobilization process. This is very important because from one perspective, according to the official Ukrainians, the Ukrainians are planning to use commercial organizations, let's say, to improve the understanding among the local Ukrainians about the war, to explain them that there is nothing to be afraid of, to explain the Ukrainians that they will do on war the same things that they are doing on the ground in the peacetime life and so on. But we understand that the main purpose of this law is to hide the identity of the recruiters, because the Ukrainians have failed the recruitment process during the previous period of time. During the previous months, they were planning to recruit, let's say, as I remember, a few 100,000 of soldiers, but as a result of the mobilization process, the Ukrainians managed to mobilize just 20%, 20,000, so that means around 10% of the number they needed. And the main reason why the Ukrainians failed their mobilization is the identity of those who were doing this, because people are living in the cities, people are living in the town, and everybody knows each other. Obviously, Ukraine is not like a China with billions of population. It's a small country with 20 million population, and there are small towns and people knows each other. So that's why that was the main problem, because the recruiters know that sooner or later the soldiers will return back to the cities, and obviously there are very high chances that they will try to revenge those recruiters. So that's why the process of mobilization failed, and the Ukrainian authorities tried to find a solution, and they start hiring, or they created the background, the platform for creation of commercial mobilization organization. First of all, this situation will allow the Ukrainians to hire people, for example, from Poland, from Romania, from Germany, from United States, from Latin America. They can hire all over the world people who will do just one thing. The main purpose to bring meat to the recruitment centers, and there's going to be no risk to discover the identity of these people. That means there is the risk for revenge is minimal. So this is the situation in Ukraine. Obviously, this law will increase the level of the number of Ukrainian forces during the next few months, because currently this is important update, and the most important that this situation proves that Ukrainians are not planning to surrender. The Ukrainians are not planning to give up. Furthermore, we need to understand that if the Ukrainians are planning to use commercial organization, that means that somebody must pay for this. And obviously, the Ukrainians don't have money to pay, let's say, Western recruiters. Obviously, the money will be paid by the NATO countries and United States of America, which also confirms that all these talks and rumors about the peace process and negotiation are just rumors. Very interesting updates are coming from the Poland border. On this video, we can see the scene when the Ukrainian drivers started movements in direction of Polish drivers, and we don't see the end of this situation, but this situation is getting worse and worse. We see hundreds of people from one side, from Poland side, hundreds of people from the Ukrainian side. The Ukrainians were asking them to give them possibilities to cross the border, and obviously sooner or later the entire situation will escalate, and there might be some small fightings in this area, which will give to bigger problems in the future. Now we are moving to the Black Sea. We got also lots of updates. The greatest storm continues. Now we see the picture of Odessa, and by the end of the previous night, by this morning, according to information we have, 5 people were killed as a result of the storm. 19 people were wounded. Around 1,500 settlements were blackout. And now, according to Zelensky, the greatest storm currently started its movement from from the south to the north. So that means that this small operational pause and complete absence of any movements and clashes on the ground will continue for more few days, which will give parties, both sides, either the Russians and the Ukrainians, to let's say collect more artillery rounds to make regroupings. And obviously after the end of this, let's say, greatest storm, there are going to be very fierce battles and clashes on the ground. Now we are moving to Krynki, to the situation on the ground. We have some updates. The Russian sources reported that during the previous 2 weeks, the Russians managed to improve their positions and to shorten the Ukrainian foothold in this area for 500 meters from each side. So the Russians currently try to attack along Krynki. So let's say from the southwest to the central part of Krynki, and the same story from the northwest to the northeast to the central part as well. And from both these two directions, the Russians managed to return for 500 from one position meters and from 500 from another. Yet we haven't received any geolocated video for the previous night. Now we are moving further and we're going to South Donetsk direction. According to information we have, without any geolocated confirmation, the Russians launched another offensive operation from Mykolaiv in direction of Dachi, or residential area that located on the southeast of Ugledar. Currently, I can't tell you for sure where exactly the clashes are taking place. There are 2 areas that the Russians might try to establish or return control over. This is the first territory that located right between Pavlovka and Mykolaiv, and this is the second area that the Russians might try to capture. Both of these territories are very important and very valuable for the Russians, so let's wait more, and obviously during the day we're going to receive some updates. If you ask my opinion, I believe that the Russians are attacking to the residential area that located between 2 villages because of distance with Ugledar, and we know that Ugledar, no matter that this area was under very heavy fire, there are still a lot of places that Ukrainians can use to attack and destroy the Russian offensive vehicles. Now we are moving to Avdiivka direction. We got also lots of very interesting updates from 3 directions: from the south, let's say from the southeast, southwest, and the northern part of Avdiivka, from 3 main directions of attacks. Let's first start with the northern area. According to information we have, as a result of Ukrainian counterattacks during this bad weather, the Russians took a decision to withdraw their positions from the eastern part of Stepova and to return to the railways. So they just took a decision to save their personnel, and now this is the main defense belt of the Russian forces. There is a lot of territories. This area, these trenches are prepared, so it's better to stay here until the end of the bad weather. So according to this information, before the next video we will update this territory in the gray zone, because at least we don't have obviously the geolocated confirmation. Maybe we will not do this, but let's wait, maybe we're gonna receive some during the day. The interesting updates are coming from the southern part of Avdiivka. The Russians are saying that not just the Syriac map, a lot of mappers have already updated their maps, saying that as a result of clearing operation, the Russians managed to establish control over these territories as well. Now we can say that this is a logical process. There is not something weird or is strange that how the Russians managed to do this. Obviously there are no chances for the Ukrainians to save control over the residential area by the name of Vinogradniki. There are no chances, so obviously the Ukrainians took a decision to shorten the combat line, to withdraw positions towards more reliable area. And I remind you that the industrial area is located on the hill, so obviously the Ukrainians are going to have more problems to control these territories, so that's why they took a decision to step back. Interesting updates are coming from the south of Stepovo, from Severne. And on this, for example, geolocation, we can see how the Ukrainian soldiers were moving along these 3 lines. So this video was geolocated, geo-confirmed. So and and the Russians were bombing the movement, the Ukrainian forces who were moving along the trenches forest. We see the Ukrainian soldiers running away to the trench lines. More soldiers are coming from the north. This is not like the regular army or regular platoons and squads. Those were just the reconnaissance teams that were trying to check the situation, maybe to capture some Russian soldiers, to get some information, to the reconnaissance in combat or in force. And as you can see on the north, on the top of the screen, we can see Severne itself. So what does it mean? First of all, that means that the map of military summary doesn't correspond to the reality, and obviously due to these videos, due to the possibilities of Ukrainian forces of a very free movements in this area. That means that this territory, at least in the gray zone, this territory is not under Ukraine control, but the Ukrainians do have possibilities to move here. The Russians do have possibility to have fire control, but as I understand, before the next video, if we are not going to receive something else, we need to change the map and to show this territory, at least this part of let's say Severna Vadiana area in the gray zone, at least this one. So and we will do this if we are not going to receive some confirmation of opposite things. Furthermore, today the Russians published the instruction how to use the electronic warfare equipment Volnares, the electronic warfare equipment that we've been talking about since for the previous few days. And this is very important type of weapon. Obviously, this is something like a solution against the Ukrainian FPV drones, and this is probably like 100% or close to 100% solution. On this video, we see the schema provided by the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation or something like this, how to build and how to secure personal carriers, armored vehicles against FPV drones, and how to use this type of electronic warfare equipment, Volnares. So we see there is a small box, and there is a roof that can be established on the armored personal carrier, and you're gonna need to establish this for at least 4 electronic warfare equipments pieces, 4 pieces of this equipment on the roof, and this construction, this configuration will allow you to save the personal carrier or armored vehicle. So this is the schema, this is the instruction that currently is spreading among the Russian let's say squads, platoons, forces, and as I understand, during the next weeks, maybe months before the new year, obviously the Russians will improve their forces with this type of electronic warfare, and this might be a game changer. Now we're talking about this not much, just like to understand what is this, but obviously soon we're gonna receive first geolocated videos of the usage and how this type of weapon affects and what kind of consequences for FPV drones this type of equipment can make. Now we are moving to Artyomovsk-Bakhmut direction. We got also very interesting updates. According to information we have, the Russians entered Khromovo. After a few days of bombardments of this territory, the Ukrainians were forced to step back from this territory, also just to shorten the combat line, because there were risk of being encircled from the northern part, because the Russians also were pushing from the north in this direction. So that's why the Ukrainians took a decision to step back. And now the Russians are trying to clear this territory. Obviously, we still can't color this territory in red, because there should be some clearing operation. Also, there are chances that are not, I'm not saying, I can't tell you like high or low chances that the Russians are not able to hold this territory, being under pressure of Ukraine artillery or mortar systems or FPV drones, and so the Russians need time. But anyway, the process has been started, and now the Russians are moving, and they're trying to short and to get as close as possible to Ivanovska, Bogdanovka, and of course some updates are coming for Klishchevka and Andreevka. The clashes in these cities continues, but most of the Russian sources confirms that the main part, most of Klishchevka currently is located in the gray zone. So this territory probably is in the gray zone, and the Ukrainians controls just the trenches and fortifications on the west and the northwest of the village. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.